The answer about what is the separation between consciousness and the physical vehicle? Aren't they all happening at the same time? Um, it's interesting question because everything happens in the now. But I want you to remember that this physicality is relying on a consciousness field called a morphogenic field. And the morphogenic field is like an archetype in consciousness. So remember that before quantum physics was invented or, coined the term with the people like Heisenberg, Niels Bohr, Einstein, all of those guys from the early 1900s that were studying all this stuff with the double slit experiments of light beams. Everything before that was Newtonian. It was physical objects like billiard balls and how they bounce off one another. Yes, there is nothing to the physical body that is physical. It is all consciousness. And if you think that the DNA that's in the body is somehow affecting you, whether it's producing hormones that are making you like adrenaline and it's making you cuckoo because you've had too much adrenaline because you got scared, or maybe it's caffeine because you drank too many coffees, it's incorrect. These are what are known as secondary causes in Science of Mind. Ernest Holmes wrote Science of Mind. He called everything like that secondary causes, and they're false causes. There is only first cause, which other people call source or God. There's only that. The problem with using the word God is it's got so many religious connotations and so much doctrine and dogma. In other words, the history of the word God. I don't like using it because it means so many different things to so many different people. So scratch the fact that I did use it, but I want you to just backtrack a little bit and use the new word. Call it consciousness. Consciousness rather than even calling it first cause, because first cause well, when did that start? Was it a trillion years ago? And when was first cause? And that makes you think, first cause was around trillions of years ago, and then if you had dominoes, it ticked the first domino, and then we still got dominoes falling, and then that's what they used to think the universe was like. That God created it, and then flick the first domino, and then even today the dominoes are still going around because something gave it the initial push, and they call that God. But God's not here anymore. The universe is still going on, and God has left the field. So that's just religious dogma, and it's so confusing for people because they've heard so many stories about this, that, the next thing, and they go, I don't understand. So strip that all away too. Consciousness. When is consciousness happening? Right now. It's always right now in consciousness. So, the idea that consciousness planted DNA in your morphogenic field that outpictured as physical molecules of DNA that, then some other energy can come along and trigger your DNA to do different things. I hear this all the time, energies coming in and they're playing with your DNA. No. It might appear to some people, but it's not the way it's working. The way it's working is consciousness is active and consciousness is non-physical. Which is a big relief to people because a lot of people think the consciousness arises from this physical vessel. And when my physical vessel drops dead, then I'm dead too because I'm, the mind. And this consciousness vehicle, and it scares the hell out of them. But it's because they don't understand that consciousness comes first, and they were in existence long before the physical body came. How your physical mind gets connected to your non-physical body is a totally different thing. I said it backwards, and it confused me. The point of it all is it's very difficult for the rational human mind to put it all together, because it is a big sponge, and everything it's heard since the time it was a little child till now is all still there in memory. And a lot of the memories conflict. So it's very confusing to try and put it all together, because some of the stuff is complete lies and garbage, and some of the stuff is very true. And how you figure out what's what, most people can't. If you've got a very good intuition, you can put it together your way, but other people might say that it doesn't make sense to me. So, you have to go your own way with your intuition. But it's the best thing you have. You can also learn muscle testing that can help you quite a bit. In the end, don't be too concerned about your DNA. I got bad genetics. I hear that from my parents. They think they sometimes have bad genetics because that's the way they were taught. And to try and get through to them that it's not bad genetics, it's nothing to do with DNA, is impossible. It's impossible because they have what's known as ossified thinking. In other words, they long ago stopped actively trying to update the data in their mind. So they run on old data, what they learned when they were, 16. And nothing's changed since then. So don't fall in the trap of, learning everything till you're 16 and then coasting. From then, even if you're 85 years old, you need to still be learning and updating the data in your mind, going through and discerning, is this true or is this a lie? And keep doing it, and then go back and revise and revise and revise. Always be revising. You might get your own answers, and that's good. Don't rely on other people, even if they're, they got 10 PhDs. Doesn't mean shit. It don't mean shit. If they give you something that's like a usable theory, try it out, see if it works for you. Newtonian physics works fine if you're playing pool. It's perfect. But, trying to figure out wormholes, I don't think that's going to work for you. You're going to need something way more advanced than Newtonian physics. And the DNA thing, well, I was told to go looking for information about the discovery of DNA. So I started using Google and going back and looking at old documents about the beginnings of DNA. And lo and behold, I found some crazy shit. DNA is supposed to be so tiny it fits in the nucleus of a cell, right? It's super, super tiny. But some of the early research said that you could order up DNA to your lab before they really knew what DNA was, and it would come, and then you could, somebody claimed that you could take the DNA and, do some chemical thing on it in a beaker, and then take out a glass rod, like my golf tee here, and if this is your beaker, my cup of tea, you could dip your glass rod in here and pull it out, and you would have a long strand of DNA. And that's what they have written. So whatever the early research was on DNA, it's bogus and bullshit. It's impossible. But that's what it says when you go looking up these early documents on the history of the discovery of DNA. Whatever everyone believes it's real and it's affecting you. No, it ain't. It ain't. It can't. It's physical. It's a manifestation. And, most people can't even see it. What do you see when you see DNA in a biology textbook in high school? Maybe that's a reprint of a electron microscope micrograph, or it's an artistic impression of what a double helix looks like. So it's a big jump of faith. They make you say on the test that's what it is, but you never saw it. You never saw the electron microscope set up with it, whatever all the stuff was to set it up on a slide or whatever it was. You never saw that all done. It was all prepared for you so that you would be a drone and absorb it and say, that's the way it was in the textbook, it must be. You got to go back and relook at all the stuff that they taught you was true, because it ain't. It ain't true. It ain't true. Unless you go back and review it and do the same experiments they did with your black hat, which is your critical eye, and look to see, well, where could they have fudged this? Why? Because everyone has an agenda. And most of the agendas that have to do with DNA have to do with you buying into the DNA theory, so that you end up buying into all kind of test kits to test your DNA, and basically the whole medical big pharma and industry, because it's all based upon biochemistry, which is all DNA, and the history of evolution of the human. It's all based on it's all based on stuff that you have to made a big leap of faith of to believe, because everyone else did. And you had to go to that school where they taught you all this. All the textbooks are printed by the same publishers, statewide. Everyone gets the same textbook, countrywide, worldwide. It's great grand brainwashing. Is it true? It's not true until you know it's true. That's what you learn in Psychology 101. That's where I got this from. It was called An Appeal to Authority. That was one proof of the truth. If you appeal to authority, in other words, you go hire a lawyer to go and get his opinion on whether your case is going to win or not. You get an opinion, and then you go into court, and the only opinion that really counts is either the judge or the jury's. So that's all you're buying, someone's opinion, and what was their agenda. That's all I got for you. I'm Harry Weaver.